When we do research or we do science, we often find things that are newsworthy, that are of note, that we want to get the word out, that we found something special. Particularly, we've found something new, we found something novel, we've found something different than what other people have found. And if that's the case, then we need to publish those results, and we need to get them in a journal. So publishing in science and publishing in psychology is very important. Let me tell you about the process, though. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the process, and then I'm going to show you by example how this works. So to publish in science or to publish in psychology, doing the experiment is just the first part, or doing several experiments, doing the research is just the beginning. You then have to write the report, and in psychology we have a special way in which we write reports. The American Psychological Association has released a book. They actually wrote a book about how to do this. So you write a report, but then this goes through several processes. Usually you have to edit, and if you have co-authors, you want them to be aware of what you're saying. Obviously, it's their words as well. They often have suggestions. They often edit it. You re-edit it with respect to their recommendations. Then they re-edit what you've edited, and so on. And this can take a long time. Actually, this can sometimes take months until you finalize a draft of the report. It's a draft of the report of the experiment. What did you do? What did you find? Why is it important? Why is it relevant? What is the background? And so on and so forth. When you finalize this draft, we call it a manuscript. And you submit this manuscript to a journal. Now, when it gets submitted to a journal, and there are thousands of journals in psychology, literally, the editor of the journal sends it out for review. Typically, they send it out to 2, sometimes up to 4 reviewers. Now, experts do the reviews. These are supposed experts in the field. They're people that have published in this area, or have some expertise in the area in which you have conducted your research. And ethically, reviewers are asked to decline to review things if it's not in their expertise, because what we want is we want the best and brightest and the smartest and the most experienced people in a particular field to comment on our work in that particular field, in that particular area of psychology, or that area of science. From that, a review is lengthy, detailed commentary on your paper. Is it good? Is it bad? What could they clear up? What is the problems with it? What's the good stuff? What's the bad stuff? And they often make a recommendation about what to do with the manuscript at that time. Now, reviews may be blind, and blind reviews are ones in which the authors don't know who the reviewers are, or the reviewers don't know who the authors are, or both. In most cases, in the journals that I publish in most cases the reviews are blind, but which means I don't know who reviewed them, but the reviewers are not blind to who authored the paper. All the reviewers know that I authored the paper. Now, there's different trends here. It actually turns out that one of the trends that's happening now is that people are publicizing, making public their reviews. And this is to remove any semblance of favoritism. But then some people could say, well, if you know who reviewed it, and if you're reviewing your friend's paper, you might say nice things about him. So it's a little bit of a debate. Most reviews right now are still blind. The editor takes these reviews and then makes a recommendation, actually makes a decision, and sends it to the authors. They either accept the paper for publication or reject it. Those are the two extremes. And then there's this group of possibilities in the middle we call a resubmission. And that is that if it's good work that maybe needs to be tightened up a little bit, maybe it needs to be described a little bit better, maybe the authors are overreaching a little bit on their analyses or their application or their generalizations, maybe they need to tighten up that. Maybe they missed a few papers, references that need to be included. Maybe they need to do another experiment clarifying this issue. That's most often the case. Is what happens is the editor will ask authors to resubmit or to submit a revised version of the paper. It's the duty of the authors to edit the draft and to address all the concerns that were raised by the reviewers. And then they resubmit it. And then it goes out for review again, and you get a new set of comments. The editor makes another decision to accept, reject, or have them revise and resubmit. And you go through this process. Sometimes you go through this process several times. In a sense, what we're trying to do is put out the best work possible. And all of our heads are sort of in it, and we're trying to do this. So to illustrate how this works, I'll just show you one of my papers. This is a paper that I recently submitted to a journal called Behavioral and Brain Sciences. And what you submit is you literally submit a Word document or a PDF that has the title and the authors and their affiliations and so on and so forth. So this paper is Dissociable Hippocampal and Amygdala D1 Contribution to Discriminated Pavlovian Conditioned Approach Learning. That's a mouthful, and it's really esoteric, and it is. It's often science is about a little bit of the world, a little pebble in the pyramid of knowledge, so to speak. So these were some experiments that Curtis Riles and I did a few years ago, and you can see that we write a very stereotyped. We write in a form that's very that's formatted according to what the American Psychological Association. So every draft of a manuscript, every manuscript sort of looks like this. There's an introduction section, there's a method section, there's a results section, this begins the results section, and then there's a discussion and conclusion section. You can see that we've reported the results of statistical analyses in here, and so on and so forth. And then you can see down here we have our discussion and conclusion section. This is where we say, well, this is what we think we found, this is why we think it's important, and so on and so forth. Down even farther here, again, this is a long document. It's 42 pages long. We have, these are all the references. These are the papers that have already been published in particular journals that were relevant to our paper here. And so we cite them as informing either the design of our experiment, the results, or the discussion of our results. Here's a figure that we generated that schematically represents the procedure. Here's the results of a neuroscience manipulation we did in the brain. And then here are our results. So we submitted this paper, and we got back our reviews. Here's our reviews. They're from the journal Behavioral Brain Research. This is the editor-in-chief, is a guy named Stephen Marin. And, he's telling us that we've received the reviews back, and here are our detailed reviews. So these are the questions that we need to answer. They're telling us that they like the work, that it's pretty good, but they have some concerns, and they want us to clarify the concerns. Our hope is that we'll wind up being published. Here's the final copy of a paper in published form that I did a couple of years ago. This was published in a journal called Neuropharmacology. Literally, they took this Word document and formatted it nicely like this. Again, the different sections are shown here. Here's the introduction. This is the method, and there are results. There's some schematic references and so on. And this is what the world sees now. This is what is in libraries around the world in this journal called Neuropharmacology. So I'm showing you these things, not only talking about them conceptually, but trying to give you an example of how this process works, because it's an important process. It's an arduous process. It's a process in which a lot of people are looking at and making sure that we get it right. There's corrective mechanisms involved in it. There's a lot of eyes that look at it, and that's how science should work. We want it to be right. We want it to be true to a certain extent. And we have it all in paper. We have it, it's in my permanent record, so to speak. So hopefully that clarifies or helps you with how we publish in science and why it's important.